Hi guys, and welcome to the Conan Fitness Platinum webinar for this month. This month we are going to take a look at advanced running techniques and see if we can give you a few tips and a few pointers that's going to improve your running, improve your pace and make it an all-round more enjoyable experience for you. Some of your greatest fitness gains can be obtained from running, but it's also a discipline that can cause a lot of injury, so it really pays to understand and monitor your running style and technique. Technique's really important, but it can be difficult. It can be hard for you to change the way you perform an action in the same way time and time again. But with practice, it can be done. So today we're going to take a look at the 4 phases of running. We've got contact, support, drive, and recovery. We're going to look at all of those individually and then show you some videos that's going to help you get a picture of what your body should look like in your mind's eye, and hopefully that will translate into your training. To run effectively, it's really important that you have a well-developed aerobic system and you have specific running strength that's going to allow you to maintain your speed while running. And then the key is to integrate these together and have them working for you so you can get the efficiency of movement and the physiological demands that come with running. So today, first up, we're going to take a look at some misconceptions around running, technique errors, the body as a unit and making your body work for you and work in unison, and then the all-important stride. So first up, we're just going to have a look at some of the common things that we hear from people that are more excuses rather than misconceptions. So the first one we often hear is, I can't run, my body isn't built for running. So, generally this is incorrect no matter what size or shape you are. There is a stereotype that all runners are tall and slender, and yes, a lot of them are, but there are plenty that do not fit into this stereotype, and they manage to run, and not only run, they manage to enjoy it. So unless you have some major physical limitation, you are built to be a runner. All humans really are. There's evidence to suggest that way back that we were persistence hunters. So for example, humans were not as fast as the animals that they were hunting, but they would follow the animal for kilometers and kilometers until the animal was too tired to go on, and the human persisted until they caught the animal. So unless you were a runner, you didn't eat, and therefore you didn't survive. So we've all evolved as runners. It's inside you. You have to find it. One of the next ones that we hear is my knees. So I can't run because my knees can't take the pounding. And basically this comes down to improper form. Your knees shouldn't be pounding. It shouldn't be too much impact if you've got the right technique. If you're keen to make running part of your training, then you need to strengthen the muscles that support the knee and focus on good technique when you're running. Without that technique, it may feel like it's pounding on your knees. So when you start off, you need to start off slow with a low mileage and give the muscles time to recover. And this can mean only increasing your mileage each week by say 10% and building in rest periods into that plan and allowing the leg muscles to be pushed hard and then spending some time recovering. Another one we hear is, I can't run, I don't have the time. So this is common not only around running but training in general, and it's just not true. Everybody has the same amount of time. It's how you choose to use it. And if you're really honest with yourself, you'll probably find that a lot of your time goes towards disposable things like watching TV, checking Facebook, sleeping in, playing video games or things like that, working on projects that are other people's, and before you know it, low priority items are feeling like an obligation when really they're not. So the truth is that you choose how you spend your time, and you just have to find out what's important to you and sacrifice the rest. So let's get down to some common technique errors. The most prevalent ones are overstriding, so that's the foot striking out in front of the body. Arm swing, so incorrect swing that can be too low, up too high, out too wide, and we'll go through all of that. Foot strike, and then body positioning. Okay, but before we look at each of those technique areas individually, I just want to take a look at using the body as a unit, because it's probably one of the most important things. It's important to remember that when you're running, the body is working as a unit, and the upper body defines what your lower body is doing. So the upper body should be in a tall and upright position, and while sprinting, it's important to get full range of motion with the arms. So remember that speed is a product of stride length and stride frequency. So the stride length and frequency are determined in part by the motion of your arms. So if you're lazy or passive with your arm action, you're limiting your potential for speed. So when we look at the arms, your front of your arm should be between 60 and 90 degrees at the elbow, and your back arm should be between 90 and 120 degrees. So if you're falling outside of this range, your running mechanics are going to negatively affect your stride. So you'll run slower and you'll get tired faster. So think about your arm swing being initiated at and through the shoulders, and your elbows locked in place. Your elbow angle should only change slightly, and the range of motion, if you think about it, should be from hip to cheek. So that is, the hand clears the hip in the back and comes up to about cheek height in front. Much more than that in either direction, and you'll result in overstriding, and that'll cause that braking effect, which we're going to look at a little bit later, and that can lead to strains, and it's obviously slowing you down along the way. So when you're running, emphasis on your arms needs to be placed on driving the elbows back. So you're not pulling them up forwards, they're coming up forwards as a result of being driven back. So when you drive them up forwards, it often leads to you pulling your shoulders up and bunching your shoulders up, and that causes tightness, and once again it limits that range of motion. So it's important to focus on driving the arms back, and then they are elastically recovered by the muscles in the shoulder. And we'll have a look at a video later on that will show you. So another action of the arms that's common is basically crossing the midline of the body. So it means when your arms are brought in front of you, they cross the midline, and then that makes the hips start to rotate. And as soon as you do that, you're burning excess energy. It's making you run slower. You're going to get tired more faster, and it's basically going to slow you down overall. And then last of all, the head should be up tall, eyes looking forward into the horizon. Don't look down at your feet, because often that will pull your shoulders down and cause you to round your back. Let's look at the 4 phases of running. So the first phase we've got is the contact phase. So this is the phase that begins when the foot strikes the ground, and major problems can occur in this phase as a result of overstriding or contact occurring too out in front of the runner's center of gravity. So it's a good idea to aim for a light and quiet foot strike that hits the ground directly under the hip. If your foot's landing out in front of your hip, you need to shorten your stride until your strike is directly underneath you. And ideally, you're aiming to strike the ground with the ball of your foot, not on your toes. So when you're sprinting, you're getting more of a forefoot toe strike, whereas long distance, it's more of a midfoot strike, and that's really where you want to be aiming for. Okay, so the next phase is the support phase, and this is when the sole of the foot is completely on the ground, taking the impact of the stride. It's essentially the shock absorption and the control phase of the strike. It's important to keep height here and run tall. You should be aiming to keep this phase really as short as possible and avoid overpronation that's going to affect the drive phase that's coming up. Correct pronation will get your foot to roll back into a neutral position for a straight and powerful driving off action. And overpronation means you don't get that neutral return and you'll tend to collapse. Okay, the all-important drive phase. So this is basically where all your acceleration and power comes from, and the timing in this phase is key to the speed development. So premature drive will force an upward lift, and overstriding is going to negate that drive. So most importantly, you need to aim for full extension and avoid that premature lift off. And this can be improved with things like bounding drills and hopping in training, doing hop training. And we'll show you a few drills that you can incorporate into your training at the end. Think about the contact and the support phase, like pushing a spring down in your legs, and the drive phase is the release that drives that acceleration. Okay, so the last phase is the recovery or the float phase, and this occurs when there's no contact with the ground and the body is basically setting up for the next stride. This phase should be over pretty quickly. Too much floating in this phase is just wasted energy, wasted velocity. So get that bit over. You shouldn't be floating through the air like a gazelle. You should be getting that bit over, done with, and getting into the strike parts that are creating that speed and creating that acceleration. So what we'll do is we'll take a look at some videos now that will show you and get a good picture in your mind of what a good strike is all about. Okay, so you'll see here, this is going to show incorrect and overstriding. Let's have a look at this. So the foot's going to come out right in front of the body, strike the ground out in front of the hip, and you can see the center of mass is right out there, right in front of it. So that's way out in front, and that's pretty much, you can see that's just a braking effect. Like if you were going down a hill and you put your feet out in front to brake you and stop you from falling down the hill, that's essentially what you're doing, but when you're running along the ground. This here, you'll see it's tucked back in, pulled right underneath the hip, and as the foot leaves the ground, you'll see that's right under the hip. Okay, and as liftoff occurs, full extension at the hip, knee, and ankle. That's called triple extension. That's what you want to aim for. Okay, here's arms. So in nice and tight, coming straight up, driving backwards, and just naturally coming forwards. Okay. Okay, so let's put it all together and see if we can give you some ways to improve your running during your training. So a great way to assess your stride and see where you're at is getting someone to videotape you. So as you can see there, a picture paints 1,000 words, and then often seeing something makes it easier for you to make that change. So if you can get someone to maybe videotape you now and see what your running is like, and then add some drills in, see if you can incorporate some of these tips into your training, and then videotape again and see if you've made any improvement. Another way is to get yourself training on doing some hill training. So like I mentioned before, you can see when you're running down a hill, your foot comes right out in front of you, gives you that braking effect. It's a natural response of the body to do that. So you can, on the opposite side of that, when you're going up a hill, because it's on that angle, tends to help with stride frequency and promote that quick arm action. So runners that tend to rotate at the hips and cross over with their side to side action quickly have to fix that up, because they're not going to get anywhere as they're running up the hill. So short hill work can really improve your straight ahead running. It's really good for acceleration development, as it naturally puts you on that 45-degree angle without any tools or anything at all. You just got the ground being brought up to you. So that's a great way. Anyone can do that. There's always a hill nearby. Get on some hills and incorporate that into your training. Okay, so remember that stride length and stride frequency are going to determine your running speed. So that's what you need to look at, getting those things in check. Making sure you're getting a bit more of a quicker turnover. Most people tend to overstride, so if you can fix that, you're pretty much going to see a bit of an immediate improvement. So practice that, try and get that down pat, and then try and work on getting your stride frequency, picking that up a little bit, and you're naturally going to be running faster. And lastly, work on your posture. Always think about looking up, looking forwards. looking towards the horizon, keeping your shoulders up nice and tall. It's a great way to enjoy your running more. It's going to be a more beautiful view than looking down at the floor, and it's going to improve your pace and make it a more enjoyable run for you. So some drills to practice. High knee running is a great one. So that's going to help you getting your foot landing under the hip. So you don't want to lean back too much on this one. You want to keep up nice and tall, because as soon as you lean back, it's going to push your foot strike out in front of you. So stand up nice and tall. Make sure the balls of the toes are hitting straight under the hip, and pull your toes up. So you don't want to be pointing your toes down to the ground. And then you can try that with a skipping rope. Once you've got that down, try it with a skipping rope and see if you can keep that going. Then you've got skip leaps forward. So pretty much basically like skipping with the high knees, but moving forwards and adding in the arms as well. And then you've got single leg hops, and that's just driving forwards and practicing that acceleration and that triple extension. So high knees, incorporate that drill, skip rope, skip leaps, and single leg hops. Well, that's it for the Advanced Running Technique webinar. If you've got any questions or any queries, more than welcome to email them through to info@conanfitness.com, and we can respond to any questions you've got that might be specific to your personal training issues or problems that you've got. And that's it for this month. So hope that's helped you. Try and incorporate those drills in, and let us know how your running goes. That's it, folks. We'll see you next month.